Hi guys, it's me again, Donna McElvaney, and we are doing planned pulling. And today we're going to be using Icelandic. And the hook is an eye. A lot of these I've noticed with the planned pullings, a lot of them is the 5.5mm eye hook with the Red Heart Super Saver. Okay, so I actually started recording this earlier and then my recording stopped. So instead of pulling it all the way out and starting over for the video, what I did was I just pulled it out to just the chain itself. You guys don't need to watch me make a chain. So here we have, I started with the gray, and I'm going to go through two sequences. I've noticed that some people have a hard time with going through more than one color sequence, so we're going to go through two. Alright, so I've got the light gray, the blue, the dark gray, and the light green. And that's one sequence. And light gray, blue, dark gray, and the green. And here I've got the light gray starting on the hook. And this is where we're going to begin whenever we go ahead with our moss stitch. We go fourth one from the hook, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we're going to single crochet, and we're going to chain 1, and then we skip a stitch, single crochet, chain 1, skip 1, single crochet, chain 1, and skip 1. I went a little snug with those, so I've got just a little bit of gray that's going into this one here. I wish that my first video that it wouldn't have cut off on me. It only cut off like into 12 minutes of it. I was so aggravated. 1, 2, 3, 4. And unfortunately, whenever I upload these, like I can't pause, and I can't like add to it. And whenever I upload a video to YouTube, I can only do one at a time. So it would have been in like multiple part series with only, 12-minute long videos. That would have just been silly. So I just started over. Alright, so now we're going into the blue. And there's plenty of blue here, so I'm not going to have a muddy leg. 1. There is gray going across the top of that. 2, 3. I'm going to get 4 blue. I like to have 2 on the hook, and for me it gives a better base. Some people, there's other techniques to planned pulling. This is the one that I go with. It's the one that I've done from the beginning, and it goes pretty good for me, so I just stick with what's good. If you don't like this technique itself, there are other techniques out there. Alright, with the gray, now it also depends too on what you want to be most prominent in your argyle pattern. If you want it to be the gray, then you could actually make more stitches out of it. I have 3 here, and where I'm going with this is I think I want to loosen it up just a bit. But if you want more gray, you would want to get like an extra stitch out of it, if you can, of course. If you're kind of torn between, okay, I've got enough yarn here to do 3 stitches, to do 4 stitches. If I pull them kind of tight, if I do them regular, if I do them loosely, then I'm only get about 3 stitches with them. So it also depends on your next row and how many you're going to get out of that one. If it's consistent, sometimes the yarn is not consistent enough. Sometimes you can have 4 stitches in one spot, and then another time you're barely going to get 2, and those times are so frustrating. So I like to go loose with it. That way I'm not pulling tight right from the very beginning, because if you pull tight from the beginning, there's a good chance that you're gonna have to pull even tighter later on, and that can cause a lot of frustration. All right, so I've got 3 of the green, 3 of the gray, 4 blue, 3. And you know what? Earlier whenever I did this, I actually got 4 green. So, and that I was crocheting kind of loose there, but I remember getting 4 green earlier. I'm gonna go with 4. And I want this one to be more blue and green. So I've got 4 blue stitches, I've got 4 green stitches. I've got 3 of the dark gray and I've got 3 of the light gray. Now if you want to focus more on the grays, then you would want to get, if it's possible, to get 4 of the gray stitches. Okay, really good. All right, good deal. Now we started with the light gray, and here we are with the light gray again. We're doing 2 sequences, so I'm going to continue on. I'm going to do 1 more sequence. All right, 3 of the grays and 4 of the blue green. That's what I'm getting. Whatever you get can be different than that. Also with other dye lots, some of them are going to be different. Some of them you're going to have more or less stitches of each color. So you're not necessarily going to get the same that I get. And sometimes you will. Alright, and I believe, yeah, I got 3 gray of the dark gray here. You could probably squeeze it out and get 4 of every single one as well. And that looks pretty cool too, because then it's really even with all of them getting 4 stitches. And yeah, I'm pretty sure I could get 4 stitches out of that. But I've got 3 in it, so I'm going to keep it with 3. So that's another thing too, you can do them all even. It really depends on the colorway that you're working with. This one here is pretty good. You can get all even stitches out of like the entire thing. And a lot of them you can't, but this one here, I could probably get 4 out of all of them. But later down the road, like I said, I didn't want to fight with it. Say I could only get, you know, 2, barely 3 out of one, and then I had to squeeze it to get 4 out of it. That would make it kind of rough. And that's happened before. I had to buy a completely different skein. I had to go with a completely different color lot, dye lot, because it didn't work at all. I'm gonna get a muddy stitch out of that one. And that's what happens sometimes too, whenever you try to squeeze 4 out of it. I got a muddy stitch, but this is actually going into, I'm fixing to start my next row with this too. So knowing that, I'm not going to tighten it up so much because I have to take out that last stitch. Alright, so it's 1, 2, 3. We're going to say that this is a complete 4th stitch and there's not a muddy leg, okay? Because they're going into the turn. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4. Just pretend that's spraying with me, okay? And here's why. We're starting with the gray onto the second one, but we have to remove that last stitch. Alright, this is the long tail chain side, and every time we come to this tail chain side, the last stitch is counted as the turning stitch. Alright, so we've got 2 chains here going up. We're going to turn. We're starting with gray. I don't have to do any fancy eating up of any yarn here because I pretty much already did, because this was supposed to be 4 stitches. So here's 1, 2, 3, and this stitch is number 4 of the green. We're going to start this very first part here with the gray, and we're going to do 3 gray. 1, 2, and 3. And that is what we had here. We started, the green is in the turn, and we started with 1, 2, 3 gray. And we've got the 3 gray. And we're going to have 4 blue. Two, 3, and 4. And I had 3 of the dark gray. And 4 of this green. I have to pull it tighter because I'm already going into the gray. I can already tell I'm going to have a muddy leg. So I'm going to go ahead back here and I'm going to pull it. But I also want to make sure I don't pull this one too tight to make that one muddy either. 1, 2, 3, and 4. However you want to work it. If you want 4 stitches of all. Because this one is pretty manipulative, you can do whatever you want to with it. Okay, pulling some more yarn out there. Alright, now we're on to the next color sequence of the gray, light gray. 3. And then the blue, which is 4. 2. 3, and 4. 3 of this dark gray. This is a really pretty color. This Icelandic. It is one of my favorites. I've made a couple of baby blankets out of it for my grandbaby. Alright, and here we are coming to the end where we have 4 of the green stitches is our count. 1, 2, 3 is on the very end. I'm going to try and go in here. Make sure that the V is on the other side. So I have 1, 2, 3, and I need a 4th one. My 4th stitch here is not going to be up 8 up in this chain, because if I start with the gray, I'm going to stack 1, 2, 3 gray. So I have to have this green one land here. I don't have enough green right now, so I'm going to have to pull back, and I'm going to have to pull it tighter. Because on this side with the not the long tail, all my legs have to land. So it is not 8 up in the turning chain. All my legs are going to count, and it's not counted in the turn. 3. I'm not going to chain 2 because I don't think I'm going to have enough to chain 2. And 4. Okay. Now, even if that didn't work, even if that had to have been a gray stitch, if that would have been a gray stitch, I would still have to make sure that I get 1, 2, 3 gray stitches to where it lands here. So if I was not able to get a 4th one here to land like that, and it was gray, even if it's gray and muddy, it's really not going to matter as long as you can get this gray stitch to land right here. If you have to compromise on your corners to make it work, then do so. You just got to make it work. Okay, so right here on the 3rd row, our pattern is going to form. You got to be up 1 and over 1. So no matter how this corner came out, I know all 4 of my stitches had to land. But even so, you're going to look at this part here and make sure that that's working out correctly. And now we've got 4 of the blue. 1, 2, 3, 4, and mine are starting right here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it's up 1 and over 1, and it's going to go in the diagonal. And that's exactly where we want it to be. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if corners are giving you a hard time, and corners typically do, corners do tend to make it difficult. If you're not able to land that stitch, and even if that means having to get an extra stitch out of your next color just to get it to land in the proper space right here, just to get it to land right here where it needs to land, then that's fine, because you're really not going to focus so much on the ends. You're going to be focusing in the middle. But in the corners on the ends is always where it winds up messing up for your middles. And see, like this one here, I'm kind of fighting to get 4 stitches out of this green now. So it may have been better just to have gotten 3 stitches out of the green. 1, 2, 3. Because now I'm having to pull it tighter to get a 4th stitch out of it. Okay, but it's working, so I'm going with it. And see where we are on this light gray. So the green ended here on that one, which is right where it's supposed to be. I've got 3 light gray, 1, 2, and 3. So see, it's going in the diagonal pattern. 1, 2, and 3 into the blue. And here's the blue, which is perfect. We're going to have 4 blue. 1, 2, 3. And the blue is definitely 4. I mean, I'm doing it nice and loose. I'm not having any issues. I don't have to pull on it to get it to go right. I flip it over to make sure that my legs aren't muddy, to make sure that they're not split in color, to make sure that they're good. That's why I keep flipping it over, because you can be nice and clear on this side and you're crocheting along and it's like, oh yeah, it's going great. And then whenever you flip it over to do the next row, and then you see you got muddy legs everywhere and you're like, how did that happen? Alright, so I'm going to do 3 gray, and my first gray was here, and now my first gray is going to be here. And I got to do these nice and loose, because I'm only doing 3 grays, and I could probably get 4 out of the gray. But I'm doing 3. Yeah, and 3 went really well. Now I've got to do 4 of these green, and we're in the turn. So 1, 2, this is the chain tail side. So one of your stitches is going to be 8 up in the turning chain. So it's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Usually, and that one's starting to turn a little bit light there, so I'm going to tighten it up. A lot of times on this turning side with the tail, whenever your legs has to be 8 up in the turn, sometimes there's a lot of extra yarn, there's a lot of extra color. With this one, there's not. Usually whenever there's extra color that has to be 8 up, I almost always have a modified puff stitch here to eat up that extra yarn. And I do it quite a bit in my other videos. But this yarn, I'm not doing an extra puff stitch. So, as you can see here, I've got the 3 gray. And my first gray is going to be right here, which is perfect. That's where I want it to be. 1, 2, and 3. And you always want to check and make sure that that's where you're supposed to be. Make sure that your colors are landing properly. Alright, and the blue is 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 4. See how that one's just a smidgen bit muddy on that one. See? I'm going to tighten it up. Sometimes I don't bother when they're just minute like that, but if I want it to be nice and crisp and clean and clear, then I'm going to go back and tighten it up to where I don't have that little bit bleeding in to it. See? Alright, and then the gray. We're starting correctly with the gray. My gray I need to begin it here and I need to end it here. Some people don't count stitches. Definitely count your first row and your second row. And then after that, if you don't want to count, you don't have to. You just have to watch every time to make sure that it's landed in the correct places. And that's important to do. Even if you do count, you want to check and make sure that it's going to land in the correct space. And here I am again, fussing with this green. Got to make it tighter. 1, 2, 3. I know in some of my videos, I just noticed that my accent's coming out a bit. Originally, I'm from Texas. I'm from Dallas. And all my family live down in Texas and stuff. I have moved to the Midwest. Lots of different life changes and career changes have taken me to different places. I would love to go back to Texas. Okay, there we go. So, I have been out of Texas for a very, very long time, but my accent comes back quite a bit. A lot of times whenever I'm tired, a lot of times whenever I don't feel well, or if somebody mentions Texas. If somebody mentions Texas, it's all over with. Alright, we got 3. Or whenever I talk to my family back home, a lot of times then my accent comes out a lot too. And 3. Alright, and now here, on this side, all your legs have to land. So I'm going to do them tighter. 1. Sometimes whenever you only get one turn and chain in, it makes it hard. And that one's a little bit muddy too, but I had to pull them really tight to get all my legs to land on this side. I flip it over to check to make sure that it's a full V-stitch, because sometimes it can be really easy for your crochet hook to go in between it and to split it. Alright, so I've got 1, 2. I did 2 chains there. Maybe I can get 2 stitches here. 1. And 2, barely. And as you can see, that one's a little bit, it's a split, it's a muddy leg. Alright, but my gray is now going to land in the correct place. 1, 2, 3. So it's pretty simple to add an additional color sequence if you want to make it wider than just a scarf. For a lot of my throws, my blankets, my Afghans, I go with 4 to 5 sequences depending on the actual colorway, depending on the actual how long the original sequence is. This here is only 2, only because I'm demonstrating how to doing more than one sequence. You just keep on going. And you turn it right where you would turn it originally if it was just one sequence. Okay. If you have any questions, if you have any concerns, if something's just not clicking with you, you can message me on Facebook, Donna McElvaney. And I'm always happy and willing to help. And I hope this helps you guys. I know when I was first pulling it took me forever. I just couldn't get it and I couldn't understand why. And then it dawned on me that something funky was going on with the turns. And that's when I realized that on one of the turns, your stitch counted, and on the other turn, it didn't. So that's whenever I decided to make some videos to help people get it who are still struggling with it. So on the long chain tail side, one of your legs is not going to land. It's going to be all 8 up in the chain, 8 up in the turn, and this one is it. And since we're still on the green's not, I'm going to have to like kind of squeeze it out to make 4 stitches out of it. It's pretty easy to count that as 1 stitch. So this is 1, this is number 2, this is number 3, and this is number 4. Whenever I get to the other colors, it's very possible that I would have to do a modified puff stitch to eat up some extra yarn in order to get it to come out correctly. Whenever you come out of your turn, always stop and look and make sure that your next color is going to land properly, because that is where it's going to mess up. You're either going to mess up here or you're going to mess up in your count somewhere. Not paying attention, not looking at it, making sure that it landed in the correct spot. And I do it. It happens to me. 1, 2, 3. And don't worry about, sometimes people get, this worries them. It's like, oh my gosh, look at this big old blob of color here. How do I know that it's going correctly? How do I know that I'm doing the correct stitches? How do I know that it's lining up right? And sometimes it's really hard to see, but if you look at the other colors around it, and if they're going correctly, then you know that yours is landing correctly too. You know that this big blob is actually going correctly. So just look at the colors around it, and then you can see that yes, it is working correctly. All right, I'm gonna work to this end over here, and I hope this helps. It's kind of repetitive. My videos, I basically say the same thing in all of them just about. And this one I did kind of modify. I changed it a little bit on the corners. If you do have to fudge it a little and finagle it a little bit to get that next color to land in the correct place, then by all means do so. Don't pull your hair out trying to get, you know, that last stitch to finally land. If it's going to be muddy, if it's going to be, you know, not quite right, or the count didn't come out quite right, just make sure that they land, that that next color coming out of that turn is actually going to land right. So here we come into this one. You can see that the gray is landing correctly. Then we've got this one here. All your legs have to land, so I got to get 4 stitches out of this one. 1, I'm doing it super tight here to see if I can get it. 2, and I don't want muddy stitches this time. I don't want muddy legs. 3, because it's starting to come out good, because it's starting to come out of this turn. And I don't want it to have a muddy leg, because it's starting to not be so much on the corner there and coming out into the middle. Alright guys, and that's how that works. So this was 2 color sequences here. Get it this way. So that was 2 of them. You can see here too how those are going to go up and eventually meet these grays are going to meet over here. Whoops, sorry. These grays, the light grays are going to meet over here. The dark grays are going to meet here, and so forth. It's going to continue on making the pattern. Like I said, that's just 2 sequences, but you can do as many as you want to. You can make it as wide as you want to make an afghan, a blanket, whatever you want to do with it. And I hope this helps, guys. And if you have any questions, message me. And God bless. Thank you.